In 2021, we had a serious setback, a life-changing setback. We almost lost everything in 4 days. And after that event, I spent 1 year reading. And from that reading, these two companies came along. The most interesting people I've met and doors I've came along this path. As long as you're walking, you're gonna meet people. Just don't stay still.
Hi, welcome back to Founder Real Talk. I'm your host, Josh Broward, CEO of Wisdom Partners, and we are doing this podcast because founders often tell us they feel lonely and they feel like nobody else has their kind of problems. And it's just not true. All the founders struggle. And so we're normalizing the struggle and hopefully making it easier for founders everywhere to ride this roller coaster of startup land. So today, our guest is Sumer Daou, and he is a civil and environmental engineer and a marine industrial leader. And he is currently building two significant transformative companies. First, Mina Kanan is a line of silent green boats that, get this, are powered by wind, like a sailboat, of course, solar, and hydrogen. So super hybrid boats in a way. And then also building floating hydrogen, or the company is Floating Hydrogen Ports, which are basically circular offshore islands where hydrogen powered boats can dock and refuel. And I don't know, maybe there'll be a snack shack on board as well. So Sumer, glad to have you with us today. And tell us about these two companies you're building.
Pleasure to be on board. Came first is the floating hydrogen ports. My background is actually making very stable floating island. This is a technology being developed at a family business, let's say. However, I grew up with it. So I was quite young when we made the first prototype for a floating island. And at some point, we were building the first football-sized floating island on a innovative technology in Lebanon. So I was looking to see where can I deploy this technology into a sustainable business model that makes a real solution and a real impact on the oceans and the seas. And I realized that the energy transition at the sea is not only a must, it's a necessity in a number of factors. I'm going to start with the last factor, actually, because today, as we're speaking, it's kind of on the news. So we are witnessing now the largest energy crisis since 1972. With the closure of the Hormuz Straits, everybody's thinking about the strategic next thing and what to do with energy. So this was my last concern. Kind of today, it will be cool to start with it. So far, the energy is a central issue related to the oil well. So wherever your oil well, you put a pump, that's simplified, then you put a pipeline to a port, and you put the energy on a ship that runs on fuel, and you take it for a trip all over the world to power other countries and other factories. This can change. So energy can be decentralized, energy can be generated locally, and this is the power of hydrogen. And this is how the floating hydrogen ports concept started. So I was looking at a really disruptive solution for the maritime sector. Let me start here before jumping to the entire energy sector. The maritime world is very well defined. There are about 100,000 ships cruising the seas and ocean. They are split into three conglomerates. Three large companies operate the entire fleet, and the fleet age is 30 years. So every 30 years, you have to scrap the ship and build a new one. And today we are at midlife, the midlife crisis of man. Well, we have a midlife crisis of shipping today. The International Maritime Organization, the IMO, which is a body of United Nations, regulates the entire fleet. So with one agreement and one signature of IMO, the entire fleet must follow regulation. And the regulation is set for 2030 to have green ships. And this is where scientists, engineers, shipping companies started looking for solutions left and right. Now, without going to very deep technical details, hydrogen is the most promising solution if we can get it to $3 per kilogram. Because at this price, we beat any other fuel, including fossil fuel or diesel fuel. So the floating hydrogen ports has this aim to make a floating platform wherever it's needed, outside any port, any marina, in the middle of the ocean, on this very stable technology. And on this platform, using wind, solar, wave, renewable energies, and others, we make hydrogen from water, from the sea. And this hydrogen can refuel other ships. I'm going to stop at the maritime sector. I'm going to not expand to other applications. And lately, there are about 5 or 6 companies in Europe developing very smart nuclear small reactors that give amazing energy solutions that can complement this. So we can actually make hydrogen anywhere, even when the wind or wave or solar are not so favorable. So this is the first company. It's incorporated in Greece. We are about a year, less than a half year, a couple of months old. And we got the attraction of the market quite fast because we are unique in what we are doing. And we may be the only ones integrating the energy service with the snack you mentioned in a cool way. So since you need a fairly large structure and robust structure to handle the waves of the sea, to give an example, in the Mediterranean, it's an 8-meter wave, and the Atlantic or Pacific, you're designing for 25-meter wave. So it's a huge structure. So we are using the roof of the structure for solar and wind, and we are using the underwater part for wave energy. But the deck, everything in between, which is huge, we are not using it. I don't need it for the energy part. So it can develop to any commercial utility you can think of, starting from a snack bar to a boutique hotel to a research science station to an airport at sea to a port dedicated to on-roll and off-roll empty containers, because today this is an issue for large ships. You have a real port. This is why it's called floating hydrogen ports. That has its own energy that can be deployed anywhere from shallow water to ocean deep water. And it can solve the energy demand and supply locally for any ship in the world. And let me stress on this strategic difference. It means the port of Rotterdam, which is one of the largest ports in Europe, which is landlocked from the back by the city of Rotterdam and sea locked by the front by a river. It has no way to develop. One, we can develop by being floating out on the Baltic Sea. And two, we can cater for its energy because today they have no energy. They are buying it. They are buying fuel ships. So imagine the impact of having a new space with its own energy source to supply their ship indefinitely. So whatever happens in the future, you are safe. You have your own energy supply. And with wind, solar, and wave, we can do partially that. With nuclear SMR, we can do it 100%. And the first question you might ask, or I'll be asked, is the safety risk. You're combining nuclear and hydrogen. How crazy is that? It's very crazy. It's crazy to the point that's actually some of the safest systems out there. You can Google, there's a nice joke at TEDx. This lady started the TEDx by asking, what is more dangerous than a nuclear factory? And it turns out it's one of the safest systems in the world because the risk assessment of a nuclear setup is so high that it has not failed. And to give you a very simple example, how many people die of nuclear accidents per year? Less than one. How many people die from a car accident or a motorcycle accident? I think if you look internationally, it's up to 1 million. So nobody stopped cars, although they are much more risk prone. But they are stopping nuclear because it's something you don't understand. So the fear of hydrogen and nuclear is the same. It's the fear of knowledge. People don't know how much goes into the design engineering of a hydrogen system or nuclear system to make it safe. And the few people who know it's safe, it's fine. I'm going to take the example of, it's okay to name another brand, the Toyota Mirai, which is a car, you have it in the States, it's running on hydrogen. So if you have a vehicle that has about 6 kilograms of hydrogen running at a speed of 120, 130 kilometers on your roads every day, and when an accident happens, you have a hydrogen tank on this car, and it's safe, it's working, it's selling. So the safety issue is settled for those who know the market. The problem, we are very few. We are literally a very new generation of engineers who are working in this market. Yeah, let me have your second question. I answered what start first. So what start first is the floating hydrogen ports, to cut it short.
Why this problem? Why hydrogen ports and hydrogen hybrid boats? Why does this resonate with you personally?
Okay, great. So when I presented the floating hydrogen ports the first time at a dedicated conference in Monaco, the feedback was you are way ahead of your time. There are no boats yet. And statistically, there are 5 hydrogen boats in Norway and 3 more coming, and 42 boats worldwide on ammonia. And a couple of projects here and there, which are yachts, let's say, still at experimental level. So I thought as I'm making a refueling station for boats, I'd rather also look at the boat. And when I looked at the boat to see who are my potential clients, I said, okay, this is something I know how to do. And I can also be one of my potential clients. I'm not going to make all the boats of the world, that's obvious. But at least let's propose something as interesting on the shipping side. So this is how Mina Canaan come along. And by the way, the name Mina Canaan, Mina means harbor, and Canaan is Phoenician. So it's a Phoenician harbor. So both companies have complementary names as well. They are parallel companies. When I looked at the shipping sector, I saw some people discussing back to wing solution, some people discussing hydrogen as alternative fuel, other electrifying boats. So being a system engineer, this is, I think, the best way to describe me because I've worked into very complex engineering problems all my life. I thought, let's combine this solution and see what comes up. Is it doable? So by combining a telescopic solid wing sail that's covered by solar panels, I could harness the wind and the solar panel energy at the same time and increase the solar capacity of a boat. So when we are sailing with the wind, we don't need the solar energy, but we have it. So what we are doing with it, we are using the solar capacity to make hydrogen by electrolysis on the boat and storing it. When there is no wind, we shift to our solar panels and power the electric motors directly by solar energy. When there is no wind and no sun, we have the hydrogen already made, so we can convert it by fuel cell to electricity and power the motors. So we can convert the hydrogen by fuel cell to electricity, and this is how we have three power modes: wind, solar, and hydrogen. Now, when we go to engineering and make the actual calculation of the propulsion required, we come to a certain constraint, which is the speed we can deliver. So far, with the available technology of wind, solar, and hydrogen, and this fully sustainable circle on a ship, we can sustain a speed of 6 to 9 knots. Now, this speed is perfect for sailing, for leisure sailing. This is the typical speed for leisure sailing. However, it is not attractive for commercial shipping. Typically, commercial ships travel at 13 to 20 knots. So this is how we combined both companies together to deliver one complete ecosystem at sea. The self-generating energy equipment on Mina Canaan boats can deliver a fully sustainable speed up to 6 to 9 knots. And I say 6 to 9 knots because depending on the wind speed and solar conditions. So let's be realistic. Now, to jump from 6 to 9 knots to 13 to 20 knots, you need an additional energy source, and it should be green. So this additional energy source is actually hydrogen refueling from the floating hydrogen ports. So what's happening here? If the boat decides to cruise at 6 to 9 knots, and this is satisfactory for the logistical operation, they can do so indefinitely with their own energy. If they wish to increase the speed to the conventional speed of 15 knots, then they will refuel at the floating hydrogen ports. And this is how we are entering the market actually from 2 points. One is the yachting sector, which is today moving very fast to green solution. And two is the shipping sector who is looking for a long-term solution. It might take a bit longer, maybe 5 to 10 years, with a really new green ship.
Thank you. What is a win in the past year that you are especially proud of?
We were selected by the Blue Invest Readiness Program, which is an incubator by the EU Commission in Brussels, run by DJ Mare, INEA, and PwC. Now, for those who don't know the European terminology, DG Mare is Directorate of Maritime, General of Maritime in Europe, which means they are in charge of the entire maritime development in Europe. And SINIA is Directorate of Infrastructure and Transportation Force Infrastructure. And PwC are PricewaterhouseCoopers, very well known. So every year, the EU Commission selects about 20 startups from all over Europe in the blue economy to support them because they believe their startups are game changers for the European continent. And I so happen to be the only startup selected from Greece. Although, I am not Greek, but my company is incorporated in Greece. And I'm one of these 19 startups this year selected for this program. So for a 15-month-old company, this is quite an accomplishment, especially that I am not new in the industry, but I am very new in the European atmosphere. I am still finding myself how to navigate the financing, granting, the industry per se. That has been amazing. And I'm really thankful and appreciative of their selection, their accreditation of me.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks.
We often say in Wisdom Partners that most of the most important lessons we learn the hard way. through struggle and failure. Would you share with us an important lesson that you learned as a founder because of struggle or getting something wrong?
I may look young, but I've had considerable experience in life and work. I can recount a couple of failures, not in the startup. So far, we've been going well here. I'm lucky we hadn't faced failures. Probably because I had my failures before incorporating this company and going on this journey. It was some years back. So in 2021, we had a serious setback, a life-changing setback. We almost lost everything in 4 days. And that led me to first, I have a different view of loss today than I
Mm.
had before. So whatever I lose in front of me, materially speaking, or even emotionally speaking, I have a different reaction or no reaction anymore to it. And after that event, I spent 1 year reading. And from that reading, these two companies came along. So after that 1 year, I wrote a white paper of 9 pages and I published it. And that was my opening. Actually, it caught the attention of the key people in hydrogen in Europe just from this white paper. And they started opening the doors for me. And the most interesting doors, like this door, Josh, we met by accident, let's say, through LinkedIn. The most interesting people I've met and doors I've came along this path. As long as you're walking, you're gonna meet people. Just don't stay still. And I had very big failures in my life, beyond realistic failures. The size is humongous. But let's keep a positive attitude on this podcast. Maybe on a different session in the future, I would mention that in details. But for now, yes, I've learned my failures and hopefully we're not making any in this one.
You said you have a different perspective on loss. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a very. So after that um, experiment, let's say, there was a car accident in front of me in the street. I was
Mm.
at a coffee shop and I was looking how people how was reacting. And it was a simple car accident, a couple of lights broken and some metal. And it was a huge fuss and people went down crying. I was looking, what's about? And if I lose $1 billion today, I would have the same reaction. I would just
Mm.
analyze it logically. There is no emotions anymore, and people tend to freak out in an accident, and this is where problems go badly. So I have a very rational reaction. There is no reaction anymore. This is what I meant by no reaction. The reaction is there, but it's unreal. It's inhumane, and unless you have been there to know what I'm talking about afterwards, you wouldn't expect such a logical response to what happens. So this is what I mean by no reaction. Of course, there's reaction, but it's so systematic, so clear. There is no chaos anymore. There is no shock anymore. You've seen it all, so nothing can bother you. It's good in a way. It's bad in other ways.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve right now?
The biggest challenge is actually fundraising. It's something new to me. I'm an industrial, as you said it. I'm an engineer. I am not the businessman. It's really not my best or my passion or my best attribute. Money has a certain language, like engineering, like hydrogen, like nuclear, we just mentioned before. Money has a certain language. Venture capital or private equity or banks or grants, each has their own set of languages. And this is what a founder's journey is. We have the technical background, we know what we are doing. It's how to convey it to those who want to fund us in a way that makes them understand what we are doing, mitigates the risks, and fills their check boxes because they are different than ours. So it's been a very rewarding year. I've learned a lot through. So I owe to a number of incubations. That's the name. One is by the American University of Beirut Innovation Park. We're very informative about this side. And lately, I'm incubated by this, I mentioned the Blue Investigators Program in Brussels. And I have a very amazing mentor in the blue economy supporting me on this journey. And I'm also selected by the leading incubator in Greece, led by Very Impact and HCMR. HCMR is the Hellenic Center of Maritime Research. So the second company, Mina Kanan, the boat, is incubated in Greece by one of the maritime incubators. And the focus is how to solve the financing issue. And we are advancing quite well.
How have you evolved as a leader since you started these companies?
Not much. I've been into leadership roles at a very young age. Managed a team of, not managed, I actually built a team, read the CVs of about 2,000 people. And from these 2,000 people, I hired 400 technicians and 33 engineers. And I was 26 back then. I wasn't the CEO, I was the general manager of the company, but I was practically doing everything except the business side. I'm comfortable working with the right people, and I'm gonna be very blunt on the right people word. If the chemistry is not there, it's very difficult to get things rolling. And after chemistry, or before chemistry, there is integrity. This is the first thing to check. After integrity, there are amazing people out there, but the chemistry doesn't work. So chemistry is goes second. You should stop at that. And then goes qualification, professionalism, passion, and each has there is no clear grade. It's a mix, but there are breakpoints. And when your gut feeling, there's a nice book called The Happiness Hypothesis. And the entire book revolves, if you want to summarize it, do you go for gut feeling or through rational thinking? When it goes to leadership and team building, your feeling has to take the lead, not rational. So even someone if scores 9.9 and the chemistry doesn't working, just stop it there. We can both have separate lives and happily, but don't work together. And since I am an industrial, we think long term. The sooner things are clear, the better. And once it clicks. And I've been really, really, really lucky finding my team or them finding me. And we are now at a pivotal point as we speak. Today, I had the first official meeting to convert the team from a friendship, honors word, to an actual contractual team on paper. And
Hmm.
we're arguing on how to do it positively. So just
Yeah.
everybody's saying like do it at how the way you like. So far so good. The team is amazing and we're doing fine.
What do you think is one area where you will need to grow as a leader in the next year?
I should learn to lie a bit more
No.
because okay, maybe some people are not gonna like this. Marketing, unfortunately, today is about lying. And there are so many companies out there that is really making my life difficult because people read the title and the title is mostly fake, but it's catchy. And I've been getting so many remarks that your presentation is not so wow and use this word and that word. And I should listen to that. And okay, some people are gonna be offended that I called it lying because from an engineering perspective, that's what it is. But it is marketing. So I should have better marketing skills, let's say, while keeping my authenticity and my honesty. And good luck finding a way doing the mix, but it's gonna happen. Don't worry. So yeah,
Okay. How do you invest in yourself as a leader?
I listen a lot to people. I read. I like reading whatever is on the table, literally. Now this year has been tough. I'm also reading technical stuff, but I like to read the history of things. So, for example, sugar, salt, vinegar, wine, tea, coffee. You're gonna say why this line of readings? Well, I discovered that if you want to read the history of a country from a political perspective, it's often written by someone who's politically aligned. So you're gonna take one side of the story, which is often wrong. However, when you read the history of sugar, through it, you learn about slavery, about the shipping,
Mm.
about everything from a source that has no point to be aligned with anyone. He's just talking about sugar, doesn't care about the politics. And ironically, you discover that half the book answers your political quest, your historical quest, in a very honest way. And it
Mm.
started by mistake. Actually, the book was Sugar. Was the first one. That's why I'm mentioning it. And I followed that track, and it was rewarding. It gave me a very clear perspective, more honest than any history book I have read because I like history. And I told you I spent 1 year reading before the Floating House reports. So there's one book that actually kind of created the company. It's called Sea Drift. From Sea Drift, I discovered that the ocean currents are very stable and it's an energy source. And this is how we moved into floating hydrogen ports and the company came along.
Okay, great. Well, so if someone out there is listening and they think, I want to help these super hybrid boats and hydrogen ports come to life, what kind of introductions can they do for you? Who are you trying to meet these days?
Okay, so we're trying to meet the shipping sector, the yachting sector, and the energy sector. And we have to address at the very top, C executive level, because it's a very serious change we are making. And it takes a serious decision to move into this direction. And I'm gonna finish with what I started with the oil crisis today we're witnessing. It's about time for strategic leaders to think about decentralized energy and to think of a everlasting solution for the next 100 years, how to make electricity mainly and later water, and heat, because everything today is electrically based. It's not just only about the green emission or the CO2 emission. This is one side of it, the environmental side, which I really admire and passionate for. But the economical side and the stability side is as important. And for a sovereign nation, it's a must today to think of a really stable energy source, and we can deliver that. The technology is promising. The cost reduction to meet a $3 per kilogram of hydrogen is related to investments more than energy. And I'm talking economy of scale. Because for energy projects, the big energy lawyers in London do not take energy projects for under $6 billion. As a startup today, we cannot mention these numbers. We have to talk about 4 or 5 million. You might think is a lot, but for an energy project, you are very limited what you can do. The larger energy project, the more feasible it is, the lower hydrogen cost. The engineer is there, and this family working in Maritime. And why Maritime? Because we have the water source available. Because all these systems require a huge amount of cooling, like data centers today. And by the way, we can have the data center on floating island. I believe, it's a more realistic solution than going to space shuttles for data centers. Because a data center is just an electricity and water absorbing machine. We can have it on a floating island, and it's safer. And the safety you're promising is better than anything on land. And the cooling load we can deliver at sea cannot be achieved on land without disrupting the ecosystem, environmentally speaking.
So people in the shipping industry, yachting industry, and energy industries. Great. Sumer, thanks for taking time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing part of your founder journey with us.
Thank you for seeking out people like me and giving them a chance to express what they're in mind, what they're doing, and wish you an exponential audience as this podcast grows.
Thank you.